Hey, conference report. Thanks for your response. I'm going to go over the comments you made here first. Like that you put the comments here. That kind of makes it easier to respond. But I'll probably play the video too, because there's some other things I wanted to address. Okay, so you're saying that. Okay, firstly, that if sentience and suffering are inextricably linked, I think we agree they are, then reduction in sentience will necessarily reduce the amount of suffering. Well, see, that's where I'm saying that in the antinatalist or the ethicist red button scenario, it just eliminates all suffering. It's a simple calculation. There's no other factors involved. I mean, you hit the button and all suffering stops. I think you agree that's correct. Then you go on. This is the same logic that figures within AN. Just as an increase in the amount of people in the world increases the amount of suffering, so a reduction in the number of people, ideally but not necessarily to zero, must reduce the amount of suffering, but only for, like, if you do one person, for that one person, yes, you're going to reduce the suffering of that one person. But when you're talking, in that scenario, there's other people still here, and you just have to bring them into the equation. I don't see any other way. Well, like, I mean, I can just, in my personal circumstance, if someone came up behind me and just blew my brains out, it wouldn't hurt me, except possibly in the sense that, yeah, I've chosen to stick around for two reasons. My family would suffer. If I were to kill myself, they would suffer. My suffering would be reduced, but their suffering would be increased. So like I say, it complicates the calculation. Like I say, and the second one is the goal of possibly stopping someone else from bringing someone else into a world of hurt. So yeah, when you're just taking out one person, it's not an easy calculation. Taking out everybody is an easy calculation. You take out everybody, all suffering ends. So yeah. Although I don't say it here, unless there are additional premises in place about personal autonomy or sovereignty, then any reduction in the number of people in the world is justified. And no, that's what I'm saying. It's not, because you have to. There's people left behind. It's just completely different. Like I say, well, I don't know if you've seen my the gift of life's video, but my wife had a cardiac arrest, which, you know, was very stressful for me, and I had a conversation with my wife about it, and you know, because she doesn't even remember it. So and if I was saying, if it would reverse, if it were me getting taken out the door, lifeless and turning blue, she said she would be completely devastated. So yeah, taking out one person, it's not a simple calculation. Okay, so that's that. The second meander I take is about whether the red button thing really is a thought experiment at all, but is better seen as a moral dilemma. I can live with that. I might say they're kind of the same thing, because the moral, like the red button, like right now, I don't think we could actually make an actual real red button that would do the trick. So yeah, I guess a thought experiment. You're thinking about what you would do in this situation. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah, moral dilemma. Or actually, it's kind of splitting hairs, but I prefer the term ethical dilemma. But you're talking about just removing some sentience. It will reduce the suffering for those that you took out, but if there's people remaining that are going to suffer because of the sentience taken out. So that's the whole thing about this life. I mean, we value our friends and family. Like with with my wife almost dying, I mean, that was stressful enough. Matter of fact, it might have been better for her if they hadn't revived her. And perhaps even better for me, because it would have been stressful, really stressful for a while. But I mean, I would have been somewhat better off knowing she's been suffering since then. So, and in turn, I'm suffering with her. I mean, we vicariously suffer when other people suffer. That's why how can one really truly be happy in life with all this suffering going around? I mean, you see suffering and you wince. You like, damn, I wouldn't want to be in that situation. So anyhow, yeah, removing some sentience removes suffering for those that were removed. But you have to factor in the people left behind. You just have to. You got to think about the people left behind. Are they going to suffer? And that's something maybe you didn't get to yet in my video. What were your goals? The sentient beings we take out, the few, in order to reduce suffering. What was going to be their impact on the reduction of suffering in their lives? Like it's a much more difficult question to answer, and so you can't say with any certainty whether taking out one sentient being will reduce suffering overall. But when you remove everyone, there's no one left behind to mourn. So, and there's no, I mean, all suffering has been reduced. So, I mean, reduced to zero. Yeah, again, you can only thing you can say is that removing some sentience reduces suffering for those. Yeah, you say maybe those people. Like I said, you just don't know. Are those people going to reproduce madly and increase suffering? Then we might be able to make an argument, but we don't know these people's futures. So again, it's a harder question to answer, and that's why the ethicist red button is a simple moral dilemma. Yours is not simple, so you can't use you can't use that. You can't change the ethicist red button to something else and say it's the same thing, because it's not. Yeah, just a quick comment. Address the fat man on the railway thing. See, that's a very complicated moral dilemma, because I mean, you got a train heading toward 5 people tied on the railway, and the only way to stop the train is by throwing a fat man in front of it. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. I mean, a fat man is going to stop a train. I mean, that'd have to be a really fat man. You might just end up killing the fat man, and everybody dies. You throw the fat man, he dies, and the 5 people die because the fat man didn't stop the train. So yeah, that one is really far removed from the simple red button extinction button. So I mean, but yeah, you're talking about do I take away the fat man's sovereignty in order to save 5 people? And who are these 5 people? Why are they tied to the railroad tracks? You can say you reduce. That's the only thing you can do is throw a fat man in front of the train. That one's kind of a strange one, a strange moral dilemma. What would I do? I'd probably not throw the fat man, because I just might end up killing the fat man too. Anyhow. Well, it's not the only premise we got that life is suffering, or that life inevitably one's going to suffer in life. The premise is that you shouldn't be rolling the dice for somebody else. That's the big one for me. You're going to impose on someone else with no need to do so. There just simply is no need to procreate, and you're going to make a decision for somebody else. You're going to risk their skin for what I can only think of is pleasure, because I'm a parent and I wanted a child just to experience, maybe not just to, but for one reason, to experience the pleasures of seeing my child grow up. And that's just, it's not rational. If I really wanted to watch experience raising a child, I could have adopted. So I created need that didn't need to exist. There was already plenty of need in the world, which I could have satisfied without bringing another person into a world of hurt. So that's really, in the end, that's what I did. I brought my son into a world of hurt when I didn't have to. Well, no, you see, well, I mean, I guess we're going back to the killing 1 or 2 or 10 people, and that's just not the same as killing everybody. Killing everybody is simple. Killing 1 or 2, like I say, if someone took me out, my wife would be devastated. How do you go? You haven't watched my whole video, but calculating, putting a number on what a sufferer is, a nookie as you called it. I mean, taking me out will reduce my suffering, but it's going to increase my wife's. How do you balance that? How do you figure how much suffering is worth other suffering? So when it comes to pleasure and pain, for me, I said this in my first video, but it's simple, at least for me, to say pain has more weight than pleasure, because I cannot think of a pleasure that equals some of the horrific pain that can happen. And I can't just, I can't just come up with something. I've tried. I can't. I mean, what's procreation? I mean, I guess that's what could be considered the greatest pleasure of life. Raising a child. Is that pleasure? Does that have the same weight as one child being kidnapped, raped, and murdered? I say no. I can't see that balancing out. If raising a child meant something like that's going to happen, no. I'd rather not have the child and prevent some horrible suffering. So, like I say, I can't think of anything. If someone can give me something, that's the way we work. I'm a determinist, obviously. You have more power to change my mind than I do. That's how that's how we change our minds, by somebody else giving us information that we didn't possess before. And then our brains say, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And now my mind has changed. Anyhow. Yeah, I'm all for individual sovereignty and human rights in the situation we're in now. I mean, I can't just kill one or two people because I've somehow calculated that it's going to reduce suffering. Well, I can't. I don't think you've presented. You're saying that you're going to reduce suffering for that individual, but if there's still people left behind, you gotta bring that into the calculation. Yeah, I'm repeating myself. Yeah, again, I'm cool with the moral dilemma. I'm wondering if that's splitting hairs. I mean, the moral dilemma is kind of a you're not currently in that moral dilemma. So I would almost put a thought experiment and a moral dilemma kind of in the same category. Well, I guess I'll disagree about pushing the fat man because, yeah, you said it's strictly utilitarian. Yeah, if you just say, yeah, all things being equal, I guess, these 5 people have equal weight to the fat man, and if you could guarantee throwing the fat man in front of the train will stop the train, which, again, see, the moral dilemma is kind of, that one's kind of ridiculous. Maybe that's a cop-out, I don't know, but I can't see how a fat man, it'd have to be a really fat man to stop a train. Anyhow. Yeah, again, you're saying if you don't bring in other factors, but you almost have to bring in the other factors because there's other factors left behind. In the Ephesus red button scenario, you don't have to. There is no other factors. It's a simple calculation. That's why I got chastised for apparently demeaning the philosophy by saying it's simple. I just said it's simple. I didn't say it wasn't important. I think philosophy is important, but I think it's quite simple, especially in the 21st century. We have a lot more knowledge than we had in the 20th century. Well, maybe, early 20th century. I don't know. But philosophy doesn't need to be, you don't have to study all the dead philosophers and all that. A person can be a philosopher, anybody can be a philosopher. You just have to observe the world rationally and come to conclusions about it and express them. That's being a philosopher. Maybe you're wrong. Well, if I'm wrong, I can't change my mind without somebody else telling me I'm wrong. I can either get offended by being told I'm wrong. I think some others have said this. I think Old-Fan said it. I wish it'd be nice if you could prove us wrong. But so far, I'm not getting anything that proves antinatalism wrong. So, anyhow. Well, you're talking about varying the thought experiment or moral dilemma, but I'm going back to it again. The ethicist moral dilemma is simple. Simple calculation. I've heard it said that the antinatalists are appealing to simplicity, as if appealing to simplicity is always wrong. If it is in fact simple, then you're not appealing to simplicity. You're just pointing out that it is in fact simple.
You thought.
Right, you're talking about the I and the we, and you're saying I would press the button regardless of what you thought. And that's not necessarily true. If you can provide me a reason not to push the button, a rational reason not to push the button, I might change my mind. But as it stands right now, it seems rational to push the red button that exterminates all life. That seems rational because I think looking at life rationally, it's just a stupid game, unintelligent design. Stop the experiment. Stop the Frankenstein. That seems the rational move. And it wouldn't hurt anybody. Quick and painless. Nobody's hurt. No future suffering. It seems to me like a simple, rational calculation. And I'm not unwilling to hear a counter argument. Give me a rational reason why I shouldn't push that button. I mean, your right to life is small in comparison to the amount of suffering I can prevent. Okay. Until next time. Thanks.